Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Thursday the 18th of September. I'm Hilary Entwistle. A severe weather watch is in place for the Bay of Plenty as the Met Service forecasts another bout of rain with no reprieve in sight until next Tuesday. Showers are predicted to spread across the region on Friday and Saturday as a rapidly deepening complex low sweeps across the country. Wintry showers are likely for many, with snow to low levels predicted for the far south. The Met Service says the watch is in place for the possibility of rainfall amounts reaching warning criteria, for example, more than 100 millimetres falling within 24 hours. You may have noticed it looking a bit tidier in your neighbourhood as Keep New Zealand Beautiful Week got underway on Sunday. Every year, thousands of Kiwis get involved with the event to help to clean up their local patch, and organisers have been thrilled by the response this year, with a huge increase in registered cleanups from last year. Keep New Zealand Beautiful Week is one of the largest nationwide community events held in New Zealand, with over 40,000 participants. It runs to the 20th of September. In sport, the first major international event at the Avantidrome got underway today and is already promising to be an event not to be missed. The three-day UCI Class 1 track event, encompassing the Avanti Bike NZ Classic and the Avanti Bike NZ Cup, runs until Saturday and will see riders race both sprint and endurance events in an international competition. Several New Zealand stars from the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow will be there and will go head to head with athletes from across the world, including Australia, Malaysia, Canada and the US. You never know when you might be without power or running water, so this year's Get Ready Week is a good time to make a plan and get prepared. What would you do is the theme for Get Ready Week, taking place from the 21st to the 27th of September. Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Controller Lee Hazelwood says a disaster has the potential to knock out power and water supply, so it's important to get ready to get through. Get Ready Week is a great time to sit down with your family or housemates and consider your own preparedness for home, school and work. And finally, former All Black Sir John Kirwan will visit Hamilton early next month to launch his new book, Stand By Me, which extends on his journey with anxiety and depression and looks into issues around teenage mental health. Clinical psychologist Dr. Elliot Bell and Kirsten Loudon-Bell contributed to the book, which also draws on the personal experiences of teenagers who have been diagnosed with mental health issues. The launch is at Hamilton Boys High School on Thursday, October the 9th at 7:30 p.m. Taking a look at the marine forecast now, Raglan northerly 20 knots and rising overnight Friday northwest to 35 knots with very rough seas. High tide is at 6:21 tomorrow morning. Bay of Plenty northerly 15 knots, rising Friday northwest to 25 knots. High tide is at 2:57 tomorrow morning. Still to come on Central News, we find out more about depleted snapper stocks in the Bay, hear from the New Zealand Garden and Art Festival and find out about Get Out There and Vote. Welcome back to Central News. Earlier this year, we learnt that snapper stocks in the Bay of Plenty waters are at 6% of what they used to be. I spoke with Legacy to find out how depleted the stocks really are. So what is the situation out there? I mean, how depleted are our stocks?
So according to the NIWA research, in the Bay of Plenty here, our snapper fishery is at 6% of its original stock size. So we've taken 94% of the snapper that was originally out there before fishing began, and it's no longer there. So our fishery is characterised by sort of moderate numbers of very small fish. And that's a real concern because if you've only got small ones there, when fishers, recreational and commercial, go after big fish, they inevitably encounter the small fish, and so now we're putting lots of pressure on the small fish stocks. So that's what the numbers are telling us. And in other parts of the country, it's much the same. we've got declining or very stable levels of fish stocks, but none of them are thriving or increasing to any meaningful rate.
6% sounds like a tiny amount. I mean, what's my chances of actually going out there and catching a fish with 6%?
Yeah, I guess it does depend a little bit on angler skill as well, and there's such a thing. All fishers recreational and commercial fishers have got access to some amazing technology now where you can pretty much just drive around, find fish, drop a hook on their head and pull them up. So there are fish still there, but yeah, as I say, technology is making it a lot easier to find them. And it's sort of akin to having a bucket of water. You'll keep getting full scoops out of a bucket of water until you get right to the very bottom, and that's the only time you actually know that that the resource is no longer there when you're at the bottom of the barrel. And we're approaching that point.
When you're out and about talking to recreational fishers that have been fishing for a very long time, have they noticed? Can they talk about stories of like 20 years ago when there were bundles of fish? Yeah,
absolutely. All the old timers have got stories of back in the day, these shiny, summery memories of even walking down exactly where we are now and seeing schools of snapper with their backs out of the water, feeding up in the shallows. You'd see kahawai. Where we are right now, you have at least had 3 or 4 people hook up on something, a kingfish or a kahawai. The reports we get overwhelmingly are from long-standing recreational fishers who attest that there is a lot less abundance in our oceans now than there was many decades ago.
And Legacy quite often talks about commercial fishing waste. What does that mean?
Waste occurs throughout the commercial fishing industry, and it does as well in the recreational fishing industry. So, but the waste that we're most concerned about is waste from trawlers. And so there are two types of waste. The first one is illegal fish dumping. Now that happens when the fishermen catch more fish than they have quota for, and so what they're supposed to do is bring it in and pay a penalty. But in reality, that penalty could send them under, and so they more often than not will just dump that fish at sea. So they'll wrap it in a net, send it to the bottom, prick it in its guts so it sinks, or just sweep it back overboard, which is why it washes up on coastlines up and down the country, which is we've seen quite a lot of in recent years. It's just an absolute unnecessary waste of a resource. These are perfectly good fish of good size, and they just don't want to pay the penalty. And it's the system that's caused the problem. It's not the commercial fishermen's fault, it's a system. And the other one is discards. Now discards are perfectly legal, and that is, say you catch you pull your trawl net up, you've got a whole bunch of snapper in there. Now between 30 and 60% of the fish that are in that net are undersized, so they're under the minimum legal size. So they're not allowed to keep them, they have to throw them back. So these are the small fish, these are small snapper, small trevally, small teriki that they've caught because they can't select them out with their methods, and they just get shoveled back in their hundreds of thousands back into the sea dead. Between 30 and 50-60% is the number of small fish that are being thrown back with every lift of a trawl net. So it's a high number. Most people don't realise that, and when they do, it's just a disgusting amount of waste.
So what's your message then? I mean, what are Legacy trying to say to political parties in pre-campaign, pre-election?
We just want parties to commit to taking meaningful steps to rebuild fisheries and reduce waste. On the surface, people think of us as just advocating just for recreational only fishing, and that's not true. Through abundant fisheries and fair public access, everyone will be happy. Not just recreational fishers, but also commercial fishers, and also the fishing public. More supply into local markets means reduced prices. It's not such a scarce resource.
Visit legacy.co.nz to find out more about our oceans and the cause. Up next, we hear about family ties in boxing with Cairo George and find out more about the Garden and Art Festival on Central News. Welcome back to Central News. Born and bred in Ngaruawahia, Cairo George already has a number of titles under his belt. Amanda spoke with the 23-year-old recently about the history-making boxing event that took place in Hamilton a couple of weeks ago.
Cairo, tell me about the Family Ties event that happened at Te Rapa Racecourse a few weeks ago.
So it was a night where I got to fight alongside my father, my brother and my sister and one of my cousins. We had about 17 fights that night, but half of them women and half of them men.
Oh, okay.
So it was a good night.
And what were the results? Who won?
Me and my sister had big wins and my dad and brother actually lost close fights.
Oh, okay. And was it a good night?
It was a good night. My brother fought Jerome Kano from the All Blacks brother, and he's a really good fighter.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So why was this type of event unique?
It actually made history twice, the event. The first one being that it was the first time a combined family had fought on the one event, and the second one being that my dad was the oldest promoter to ever fight on one of his own events.
And how old is your dad?
50.
15. He got into the...
Yeah, he got in the ring and had a go.
Nice. And has he been fighting most of his life?
He's never fought while I've been alive, but he fought before I was born, yeah.
So I understand you are also at the moment raising money to bring a fighter over from China to compete for the Pan Asia Pacific title next year. Why is it important that this particular fight happens here in the Waikato?
I just feel like it'd be a special thing to bring to the Waikato, and I feel like I should give back to the people that have supported me this far in my career by bringing the fight to the Waikato so they can come out and support me.
Yeah, and does it make it a little bit easier to win if you've got everyone behind you?
Yeah, it's always good to look out into the crowd and see familiar faces and see the support that you got. In those late rounds, sometimes you need a little bit to get you up and going.
Yeah, and do people recognise you in the street? You've got quite distinctive hair.
Yeah, so when I always do my hair different colours for the fight, I always say that the colourful hair brings out my colourful personality.
So people stop you in the street and...
When my hair's like this, as soon as it goes back to normal, I'm nobody.
Now, you also are a personal trainer at Les Mills. Is that how you get a lot of your clients as well? They see you and they think...
Yeah. So they see me with the fights and stuff, so it works quite good for my personal training business as well.
Yeah, excellent. Now, how do you prepare for a fight? Do you have any special rituals?
Depending on the fight itself, training camp can normally be between 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what the fight's for. And training up to 3 times every day, putting a lot of road work in, strength and conditioning, and a lot of good quality sparring.
Yeah, and you're trying to get your weight down as well?
Yeah, so nutrition is key as well.
Lastly, is there any advice that you would offer any young men or women wanting to get into boxing?
Yeah, just get straight into it, don't hesitate. It's a good fun way to let some frustration out and burn some unwanted calories.
For more details and to stay up to date with Cairo's progress and fights, you can follow him on Facebook. Just search Cairo George. Last week, the New Zealand Garden Art Festival program was officially launched. I found out about the launch and what we can expect from this year's festival.
It was great, Hilary. It was a fantastic night. Fortunately, it rained a little bit, but that didn't deter the launching of the program. It sort of represented tickets going on sale the 1st of September, and for the whole month of September, it's early bird ticket sales on at the moment. So it was great to get that one ticked off.
We are here at the Lakes Pavilion. What purpose is this venue going to have?
One thing the Festival Trust really wanted to do was to make a significant growth with the festival, and we identified the fact that we've never actually had a central hub where we could actually run all the activities out of. Up until this festival had always been at different locations around Taronga and Mount Maunganui, and if you look at Ellerslie or Chelsea or the Melbourne Flower Show, one thing they all have in common is they actually do have a festival hub. So we're doing a little bit of catch up, and we've finally done it. So we're really excited to actually have a central point now.
What will it look like?
It's 2.5 hectares, so we've been able to plant wildflower beds. We've got Signature Homes on board as a fantastic sponsor who have built almost a 20-metre structure that will be housing 2 different types of exhibitions. We've got a 20 by 50 metre marquee, which will also be home to Floral Art Awards, a fashion show, different exhibitions. A hospitality tent where Dallasea Cafe will be our on-site caterers for the week. And the speakers marquee, Harrison Griersons, have come on board as sponsors, and they hosting the 3 days of workshops and speakers.
You mentioned Wildflower World. Sounds intriguing.
Yes, Jeff Brunson and Liz Brunson from Tauranga export wildflower seeds all over the world. Their head office is here in Tauranga, and they heard about the festival. They've done work for Ellerslie in the past and was very excited, and they jumped on board immediately. So it's wonderful to be able to highlight and showcase one of our local floral art businesses here in Tauranga.
A relatively new trend for people living in apartments is the living green walls. And I understand you're going to have a bit of a demonstration on this?
We do. We're collaborating with a fantastic company from Auckland called the Natural Tree Company. Cameron Walker is the CEO of that company. He's a super knowledgeable man on green walls. They're bringing down just on probably 6 metres of green walls from their showroom in Auckland, as well as some really exotic plants that they specialise in. So it's great to be collaborating with them. And the green walls, you're right, Hilary, it's a real phenomenon now with corporates and hotel lobbies and also domestic use as well.
Can you explain what a living green wall is?
So it's a system of planting walls, normally in indoor space, and it's a system of pockets where there's soil and plants, and there's a watering system that takes place as well. But it allows you to use an interior wall and completely green it and keep it living. So anything from flaxes to native plants, incredible to look at, because instead of hanging a piece of art, you've got this incredible living wall.
To see what beautiful gardens and fun events will be part of this year's festival, visit gardenandartfest.co.nz. Still to come on Central News, we take a look at the weather for tomorrow and find out about the Get Out There and Vote campaign. Welcome back. This year's election appears to be getting everyone fired up, and for good reason. Tony Stevens discusses with Amanda Harper about the political system, how social media plays an important part, and the importance of young voters getting passionate about politics.
Tony, what is the Get Out and Vote campaign?
Well, the Get Out and Vote campaign is a politically neutral campaign where we're just trying to encourage all of New Zealand to get out and vote, basically. And it's a response to low voter turnouts. We think it's important that everyone gets involved in our democracy and contributes to society. Voting is a really important way to do that, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely is. Now, are you working a lot with youth as well?
Yeah, so I'm coming from the Stand Up, the youth union movement. So that's part of the wider union movement in New Zealand, and they've come up with the Get Out and Vote campaign. And yeah, I guess specifically youth do have a history of not voting, and I think that's due to a lot of reasons: the lack of education in the secondary schools, and maybe the politicians don't perhaps see the value of engaging with young people as much as older voters. So yeah, we're just trying to turn those statistics around as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and are you noticing that more youth are sort of becoming interested in the election?
Yeah, definitely. And social media has been a hell of a battleground with that. It's, I mean, I noticed from my own circles, I've had young people, first-time voters, actually approaching me on Facebook and saying, who are you voting for and why and what are your values, just to try and get a sense of how they should approach it as a first-time voter themselves. Yeah, so definitely I think so. And it's going to be encouraging. I truly believe there will be more young voters than the last election.
And are they feeling confident that their vote will actually make a difference?
And there's always that doubt, and that still exists. But you know, when we look at the last election, 1 million voters who could have voted did not, and a quarter of that were young voters. So about, you know, nearly half of the voters under 25 didn't vote. So yeah, they can make a difference. Imagine that many votes contributing towards an election would certainly make a difference.
That is a lot of people that didn't vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, and why is it important for young voters to have their voice, to have their say? I mean, politics does seem like an old man's kind of, you know.
I know, and that is the way it's portrayed, and it is. I mean, the average age of an MP is mid-50s, I believe. But I mean, they are still making decisions on behalf of these young people, and we have to live with as young people, we have to live with those decisions for a lot longer than our parents and our grandparents. So that's why it's important to vote, because these decisions affect us, and they affect us for a lot longer. So get out and vote, people.
Now, also on a personal level, you're out there encouraging people to vote. You're neutral, obviously. Is it difficult to sort of hold off your own political opinions?
Oh, it always is. You know, it's such a politics is a very opinionated sphere, isn't it? So it is tricky, and but I do try to stay away from it unless I'm actually asked. You know, especially when I'm involved in something like the Get Out and Vote campaign, where we're actually just supposed to say, just please vote, and not say who to vote for. So I mean, yeah, it is a challenge, and I have slipped up a few times, but I do my best.
Early voting is now open. To find out where your nearest polling booth is, check out elections.org.nz. All right, it's time to take a look at the weather for Friday now. Hamilton, rain or showers, northwesterlies as well. Your expected high is 17 and an overnight low of 10. For the rest of the Waikato, the same for you, rain and possibly easing to showers with northwesterlies. Paeroa, your expected high is 18 and an overnight low of 7. Matamata, 16 and 7. Te Awamutu, 17 and 7. And Tokoroa, you can expect a high of 15 and an overnight low of 6. Tauranga, rain easing to showers with northwesterlies. Your expected high is 18 and an overnight low of 9. And around the bay, Te Puke, you're the same, rain easing to showers. Your expected high is 16 and an overnight low of 9. That is Central News for today. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you join our Facebook page, centralnews.tv, and let us know of news in your region. I'm Hilary Entwistle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.